Hi and welcome back to my channel. Grab a cup of tea because we are talking about how AI took my job. Wow. This conversation has been prompted by the recent ban and unbanning of TikTok, and I know everyone's talking about it, so I'll join the bandwagon. First of all, let me just briefly talk about how I feel about the whole thing when TikTok was banned and then now it's back. There are mixed reactions, or people feel differently about the ban. So do I, because there's a select group of people who feel like, oh, the ban was the right thing to do according to everything that they feel was right. Others are citing brain rot, others are claiming, and mostly it's the older generation that is talking about the way the younger generation is no longer, I don't know, attentive or whatever the baseless arguments they have. And then the younger generation is claiming you are taking away our medium of one, communication across the globe, and two, a way of earning a living. Perhaps if you just look at it objectively, there are people who would spend several hours on the app and they're just consuming, hence the brain rot and lack of attention or deterioration of the attention span. But then I'm looking at a brave young man who's put himself out there so that they can earn a living off of it. I come from a part of the world where we do not, unfortunately, benefit from the creator partnership with TikTok, but then we can still use the platform to push whatever service or goods we are providing out there to reach our clients. So whatever it is, when the app is banned, we still feel a pinch. I am looking at it from the latter point of view, from someone who is also using the platform to earn a living. How has this prompted the conversation that I was about to have? People are arguing that people were given, or the creators in America were given enough time between the announcement of the ban until the ban. Surely we live in the real world and we know how getting the job or the whole hiring process takes a long time. If not even, takes a really long time. So if this is a platform that someone had used for some time, it is the transition period is a challenge, and I would also argue it's not easy to come by a job. The short period of time when they announced the banning and when it actually happened, it wasn't enough time for people to transition. Let's say people who are creatives or content creators, then they now had to go back to the real world and get real jobs. Not that their jobs are not real jobs, because I am a content writer, and someone would argue, oh, you just sit down and write. No, it's actually real work. When AI came in, it was a tool that was used to make work easier. There were several debates on how it was going to take our jobs, and people were scared about things like that. But you transition slowly by slowly. In the beginning, when I started the job as a content writer or a freelance writer, because it's freelance writing, I was working with a company that was hiring several content writers on a contract basis. Again, these platforms, the more you put out, the more you get in. Hence why you see people who are caught up in the cycle of creating and putting themselves out there for people to notice them by the end of the day, which makes a lot of sense, because if you're not doing it, you cannot understand the magnitude of work that goes into creating a single video, if not hundreds and hundreds of them that have to be dished out in order to grab the attention, or even a worldwide attention. Content writing, you have to sit down and write and do a lot of research. This is other people's work, and you go on the internet to find out several sources, and then you now bring it down to what is relevant to the topic you're writing about. You sit down and write. This takes between 1 hour, depending on how fast you are and the amount of preparation you had prior, to several days depending on also the amount of work that is supposed to be done, because sometimes you're writing a single paper that is 275 words, and sometimes you are required to come up with content that is over 10,000 words. As a freelance writer, once you have done this, by the end of the day, you have to pass it through a medium to determine the amount of plagiarism, because of course you're reviewing someone's work before you sit down and produce your own work. And there's the editing part, where this is the point where we also used the tools that I mentioned earlier. So you run this through a medium like Grammarly for it to now look at your grammar, correct it for you, and then just the small things, and humanize it. By the end of the day, it's still your work that you sat down, researched, and wrote. After some time, work started decreasing. And of course, this is not to be confused at all with the seasons of work, because in freelance there is high season and then there is low season. But even during this time, even during high seasons, there was just a decrease in workload. So of course you get curious, and everyone is talking about AI, and you are starting to slightly panic, but because they still work, there is no time to panic. You have to read, research, write, send, the whole process that we earlier talked about. After some time, then there was literally no work. And it doesn't help that this happened when we were going into the expected low seasons. Out of curiosity, one time, I and my peers with whom we were working, we go on the website and they have content, except it's not my content and it's not my peers' content, because after some time you start to network and you know each other. I write to the hiring team and I ask what the issue could be. So when you're a freelance writer, you do both technical and non-technical assignments. So when it comes to populating websites, that is the non-technical part. But then sometimes there's the coding part where now the things get technical. So after some time, we started to notice the non-technical parts or the non-technical work was slowly just diminishing. And even the platforms were shutting down. So for some time, they were only hiring the technical workers. It helps that I am able to do some of that when it comes to maybe coding or algebra, math. We were still able to do things like that. But then that also started to shut down, because now people are able to subscribe to the pro or paid versions of this AI. When you reach out to them, they tell you, we could hire you to do the part, just run it through AI, humanize it, but at a fraction of the cost. And does that really make sense? Because that is like letting me down softly. So of course I did not take the offer. When you look at it from a point of what you used to do in 3 hours to 21 days, and then there is a tool that can churn out that amount of work in seconds. You have to look at it objectively from the point of the employer who is paying you to do the work in 21 days. That's a long time. And also the person who's using the tool. Also note that when it comes to freelance writing, the more you put out, the better it is for you to earn more, right? And again, I will just tie it to the band. You see these creators making hundreds and hundreds of videos before they gain traction. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of toiling, and especially the exhausting part is the reading, researching before and the writing part. Now here we have a tool that is able to do this work back, forth, 3 hours to 21 days in a matter of seconds. It is able to churn out what I was doing in hours in seconds. Even if I was the owner of the platform, or if I was the employer, I would take that option. Again, let's just be objective about it. Can you compete? No, no, you cannot. Paid versions of these tools are very powerful. They give you accurate code. They solve mathematical problems. They give you answers in seconds. While for us, while our work was quality and human, it's your job, you've taken time to give it back. You cannot compete with the machines. They are fast, they are efficient, and you're told to learn how to be dynamic. And you learn how to do it and you start making a living out of it. And then slowly by slowly, AI still, takes that from artists and writers and people like that. And then I am a software developer, therefore I know how to code. So I'm able to take on technical assignments as well, or technical work as well. So then that means that on both sides of the spectrum, could be over for both of us, but am I worried? Just like everybody else, honestly, yes. But am I going to sit around and be stressed for no apparent reason? Absolutely not. How am I looking at it moving forward? These tools have to be trained in a way for them to optimally work. So how can we now learn AI and leverage those skills in order to earn a living as well as provide solutions to problems that they already are? I'm looking at it as an opportunity to step out of my comfort zone, if you will. I'm looking at it positively, that I'm able to learn something new or even challenge myself to learn other things. And while that was an industry that I had known the ins and outs of it, it doesn't hurt to learn another thing, in fact, to move forward in the industry. So am I bummed? Absolutely not. Am I looking at it as a way to challenge myself? Maybe. Am I mad? Yes, I'm mad because obviously that was my source of living or income. Am I going to sit around and mope? Absolutely not. I have to look at it objectively from a point of, now this is something that we have to deal with. In fact, it's a challenge. If everyone is talking, oh, I asked ChatGPT to do this for me, or I asked ChatGPT to give me a grocery list, I asked it to do this and that. So, if it took my job, it might as well help me to get another job. If it is able to do that amount of work, then it is able to solve a problem that I have right now. So let's find out if that very AI that took my job is able to give me a solution on how to, one, leverage and learn a skill on that very AI, or two, to pivot and find something else. But it has to give me a solution. Since you got a degree and you know everything. Out of curiosity, I am dying to know if your industry, in any way, the whole industry or partially, have you been affected by AI? Has artificial intelligence taken your job, part of your job? Has it declared you redundant? I would like to know in the comment section below.